last couple of days, like,
Fill it up.
very exciting. So we're using this letters. Does this mean we're going to ride with the guys here?
Okay, I think, Chair Neff, we are set. Sorry for, sorry.
I'll call back to order, we adjourned from our break there. We're gonna go ahead and start with our legislative items. We're gonna jump to item 4B. Proposed general plan amendment, including the transportation master plan. Includes the active transportation plan, TMT, and impact fees, facilities plan, and impact fee analysis. That presentation, Amy, turn the time over to you, and we also have some results online.
We do. Oh, as I break the microphone. Sorry, everyone, and especially those that are visiting with us virtually. So before you this evening is something that has been in the works for quite a length of time. We have worked very closely with our consultants on the transportation master plan, as some of you may recall, and some of you were involved, not this last summer, but the summer before. We actually had our consultants come to a food truck, giddy up and get some feedback there. We had maps. It was really fun, and we engaged a lot of people. We had some interactions here at City Hall with individuals as well, and it was really a productive process. We also had a survey that went out to gauge public interest on the transportation master plan. So we have with us Kai, who's with the group Parametrics and helped us with that. But then we also have with us Susie from Zions Bank, and Susie has been phenomenal in helping us on the impact fees side of things. So there's certain requirements in order to charge impact fees for transportation. And so we need the plan in place, but then we also need a study to be able to justify being able to utilize and secure those funds. And just one other important thing to note about our transportation master plan, there's a very large component of it that is active transportation. And the reasoning for that is because we received a grant from UDOT to assist with completing the study in support of active transportation. And so you'll notice there's several elements of the plan that address that in being thoughtful and trying to be forward thinking on that end of things. And so with that, I would introduce Kai to begin his presentation, and then Susie also has a presentation for you this evening. And if there's any questions, I'm sure either would be happy to entertain those, and then I'm happy to entertain or summarize that as well. Kai, please jump on in.
Wonderful. Can you all hear me?
We can't hear you, Kai.
Can't hear me. Oh no.
Okay, I can try to see if it's me or if it's you.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I could hear you, but I don't know if they could hear
Okay,
me.
Kai, can you try to speak again?
Hello? Hello?
Just a moment. See, poor Kai's been sitting here hanging out with us all night, and now, sorry, Kai.
No problem.
Okay, okay, Kai, try to speak again, please.
Hello? Hello?
Is it, Kai, can you try to speak again, please?
Hello? Hear me now?
Oh, yes,
You can hear me?
welcome.
Excellent.
Yes, a little bit of feedback, but we can hear you.
Great. And can you see the presentation?
We can.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all. Appreciate being here. We're excited to get to the finish line on this project. So my name is Kai Toinaka. I'm a transportation planner with Parametrics, and as Amy said, we partnered with the city to help develop this transportation master plan, which has two kind of key components: the vehicle kind of general transportation plan, and the active transportation plan. So I'm just going to kind of briefly go through our process and the key components of the work, and then some of the work that we did leading into the work that Susie will be presenting on the impact fee. So as Amy mentioned, we had a good public engagement component of the project. We conducted a number of stakeholder interviews, including regional partners such as UDOT, Wasatch Front Regional Council. We also talked to the school district, the Trails Foundation in Northern Utah, and all of the neighboring cities. We had an area-focused stakeholder meeting that really focused on the kind of the industrial area west of 89 and invited business owners to come provide impact to that specific area. We had the public event at the food truck Giddy Up, which was a really fun and productive evening. And then we also had the community survey where we were able to collect some public comment. Concurrent to the public engagement, we also did an existing conditions analysis where we looked at demographics of the city. We inventoried existing facilities. We looked at existing traffic, collected traffic counts throughout the city, looked at active transportation activity. So looking at Strava data and seeing where people like to ride and walk. And we also did a safety analysis looking at both all vehicle crashes and active transportation crashes. We also looked at future conditions. This is more focused on the vehicle traffic side of things, looking at the Wasatch Front Regional Council's travel demand model. We looked at future socioeconomic projections, so looking at future household employment, and then modeled future travel demand throughout the city. So from there, from the public engagement efforts, the existing conditions, and working with the city, we were able to develop our recommendations, the kind of the meat of the plan. And so we've got our vehicle recommendations, which kind of culminate in this future vehicle network map, where we show a future network with the dashed roads showing planned future facilities. In our vehicle recommendations chapter, we also look at other things like traffic control, access spacing. And then finally, we did look at a railroad crossing analysis, looking at the relocation of this railroad crossing and looking at spacing and a number of factors to kind of figure out the best alignment for that relocation. On the active transportation side, again, we've got this future active transportation network map that shows all the planned facilities for active transportation, which include on-street facilities like bike lanes, buffered bike lanes, off-street trails, and multi-use paths. And then also looking at some intersection improvements, trailheads, and those sorts of things. So all that feeds into our capital facilities plan. So we take our future plan networks, what the vision is for the transportation, and then work backward to develop specific projects and then phase those in different chunks so that it's not just all one group of projects. We prioritize and put phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 projects. And so that's what's showing in these two maps. So we've got the vehicle projects by phase 1 showing in green, phase 2 in blue, and phase 3 in red. And the same goes for the active transportation projects. And that all feeds into, our capital facilities plan list with the specific projects listed out, high-level planning cost estimates, so we can get a really good idea of what this will all cost the city. We got our phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 projects. We have a list of other capital projects. These are mainly local street projects that are focusing on substandard roads. And then we do have some projects on UDOT facilities that we're proposing. And so finally, this all feeds into the transportation impact fee. And so what we do, and this is kind of the final step of our work, was to develop an impact fee facilities plan, which is required for the city to adopt a transportation impact fee. And so what we did was identify those projects that are eligible for impact fees. And so we look at a 10-year planning horizon. That's what's allowable. So really, we were looking at those phase 1 projects. They have to be system or capacity, generally capacity improvement projects. And so we have to show that new development is driving the need for these facilities. And then we can also look at existing excess capacity. So those are existing roads that the city paid for that has excess capacity, and we can look to recouping some of the costs that the city already paid to get some impact fees back. And so these are the projects that made it into the impact fee facilities plan. And with that, I don't know, Amy, if you want to go to questions now or just go straight into Susie and her presentation.
Chair, do you have a preference if we do all the questions? I think we can jump into Susie's presentation and then maybe do questions for either of you following.
Great.
And Susie, if you don't mind saying hi to make sure your audio's,
Can you hear me?
yes, thank you. Phew.
Good, good. Yay. We got that one worked out then. Let me just start here. First of all, Kai, that was a perfect lead in. Thank you so much. Setting that. Oh, there we go. I'm trying to get this to start from the beginning of the slideshow and do a full screen. I just need to get this little black top thing moving away. There we go. There we go. We're almost there. There we go. Okay, are you seeing my screen okay now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry, it takes a minute to get set up. Appreciate the opportunity to work with you. Kai's great, and that was a perfect lead in to the impact fees. So impact fees are this out of our way. There we go. Are a one-time fee. They only charge a one-time fee. It's charged to new development, and it's to pay for capital costs only, the added capacity that we need because of new development. And Utah law allows us to charge them for roads, for water, sewer, storm, parks, public safety, those types of utilities and services. So Utah law also makes it very clear that we can only charge for the cost of system improvements, not project improvements. And then the code does not define the difference between them. But generally, system improvements are larger improvements that are meant to serve the community as a whole rather than one area or project area. So for roads, it's generally been interpreted to mean arterials and collector streets, which we can charge new development for the added capacity that we require on those types of streets. And Utah law also requires that we have to have an impact fee facilities plan, an IFFP, which Kai has done, and an impact fee analysis IFA. So just quickly, the differences between the two of these. Impact fee facilities plan is more the engineering technical document, and by law, it has to identify an existing and proposed service level. And Kai has identified a level of service C in terms of traffic flow, delays, timing, that type of thing. It's generally accepted standard. This terminology is used all throughout the transportation industry. And then yet you would want to maintain that. And so what projects would it take to maintain your service levels given the growth that you anticipate? And then he's going to identify for me two components. And these are the two biggest components when I write the fee. From an engineering standpoint, he's going to identify the excess capacity that we have in the system now and how much is going to be consumed by new development, and the new facilities that are needed and the costs that can be attributable to new development over the time frame of our study. Then the impact fee analysis, I am not an engineer, I do finance, and this is the financial document. And the phrase that's used in the code is proportionate share analysis, and there's two main components. We're gonna have a buy-in to the excess capacity, and we're gonna have the construction cost to new facilities. So we might have a little bit of excess capacity in what we've built that new development can buy into, that you were smart enough to build years ago with a little bit of oversizing, knowing development would come. Then you're also going to need some new facilities, new signals, new intersections, another left turn lane, another lane on a road, things like that as well. And so those are the two main cost components. Then we can just do a little bit for consultant costs, fund balances, financing credits, all those types of things also play into the analysis. So really quickly, the very first thing we look at, the demand units, and you're projected to grow in the time frame of this study, which is 2023 to 2030, by about 24,433 average daily trips. And that was taken from the IFFP. Kai has already shown you this. These are the facilities with excess capacity. So maybe remember this number here a little bit, the nearly $534,000 is the amount that's eligible to be paid for by new development into buying into that excess capacity. By law, it has to be the actual cost at the time you acquired it, if it's existing capacity, not today's cost. The next component are the new facilities needed, which Kai showed you as well. We take this from the IFFP, which is about $1.2 million. And Kai has done this really well. He has discounted for all the things, the red flags that developers may challenge on, and he's done it. He's taken care of us, taken care of the pass-through traffic, looked for existing deficiencies, those type of things, and come up with the impact eligible cost of the 1.2 million. So then we take simply here the excess capacity. Like I said, there's two main components: excess capacity at the top, new construction. We take this amount, we divide it by the growth in ADTs, and we come up with a cost per trip here, cost per ADT. So we add those together. We can add in the costs of Kai and my costs in preparing this, any planning and engineering costs. So we have a cost total of about $71 per trip. So what do we do with that when people walk in the door to pay their fee? I mean, if I'm going to build a home, how does that relate to my building my home to a cost per trip? So then we take the Institute of Transportation Engineers, the ITE manual. It's sort of the Bible of the transportation industry in terms of how many trips do we have on average per day for different types of uses. So a single family detached house would have about 9 trips. Now that's counting back and forth over the driveway. And so we have to adjust the model. Whoops, let's see what happened there. There we go. We have to adjust the model by half. Okay. And then we multiply this 4.72 times that $71 to get a cost here of about $337 per residential unit. You can see that all these land uses have very, very differing amounts of traffic that they place, on the system. And so I think if we did do a retail strip mall, obviously that's a very high one down there when you look at the average number of trips down here. You also notice there's a column pass by trips, and this is all from the, this is different than pass through. This is not people just passing through your community. This is from the ITE manual. They've done a lot of research. They count these trips all the time, and they're showing that for some places that we go, we don't just go on one stop and come back, but we make several stops while we're out there. We might go, if we're going to the store, we might also stop at, pick up a donut somewhere. We might stop at the bank, Zions Bank, anywhere else, drop, those types of things. And then so then we discount that a little bit, so we don't double count our trips. So you can see this 54 number, the adjusted trip rate really comes down to 16 to bring down that fee a little. And that's my last slide. So if you have any questions, there you go.
Thank you, Susie. So with that, I don't know if there's any questions of the commission. This is an item of recommendation to the city council.
So just for clarification, What,
And those are all part of the general plan then.
right,
Yes, yes, thank you so much. And so it's a recommendation to amend the general plan to include those so that those tools are available to the city to be able to utilize in future planning and then also to apply for transportation needs.
and how do fees, as I read through all of this last day or two here, how are the fees? When we set them on all new development, we get it, we use it, but we still try to go after, you know, impact, like a WACOG or grants, all the grant type money for these trails, or even those different projects. So that's just kind of above and beyond the impact fees.
So the impact fees are not going to address the full costs of anything and frankly, and I mean, no disrespect to the work that Susie and Kai have done, but they really struggle to encompass the entirety of the impacts. And so there are massive costs with relation to roads and sidewalks and different transportation systems. And this helps to support the continuation and improvement of those. So, I mean, it's what we're able to justify based on trips, based on travel, but ultimately, yes, we will continue to seek those other funding sources. We have the BNC road funds from the state. There's various things that come into play with regards to transportation, and frankly, it's very, very expensive. More and more every year.
Can I add the comment that if you were to get a grant for one of these facilities that Kai has listed here, we would need to go back and reduce the impact fee. You can't charge twice. You can't get double paid.
No, thank you, Susie.
So we already have impact fees, so I guess I'm kind of curious, what is this doing differently than what we already do?
So this is a specific transportation impact fee. And I don't know, Susie, if you want to jump in and address that, but it's
So this
different
is
from,
different than a normal, the already existing impact fees that somebody incurs, okay.
correct, it's in addition to.
Forgive me, I just barely saw this like 5 minutes before the meeting. For some reason I didn't get the email, or I didn't, but I don't know what happened, but I just didn't see it. So I'm just kind of trying to get myself caught, but so these fees, like I'm just reading this last one. For a single family household, which has an estimated 4.70 trips, the impact fee is $337. So is that what we charge to a developer, the city, for their application for development? That would that be?
That's the intent.
Okay.
And right now, we have various impact fees, but we don't have anything relative to transportation. And then the only way you can establish a transportation impact fee is to go through this process.
In terms of like benchmarking, do we have local cities that are doing this right now currently? Do we have anyone to kind of compare it to?
Yes, and I don't know, Susie, if you could speak to the number of other cities that you've worked with on this. I know Zions Bank is highly experienced in this and you're
Yes,
on mute, sorry.
yes, and I think that Kai could as well. We do
Yeah.
these all the time, everywhere. Harrisville recently, Salem recently, West Bountiful's been looking at one. I mean, we do them all the time.
Yes, it's a very common practice. And I would say also, if you're nervous about the amount of the fee, I think relative to a lot of the other cities, it's a pretty small or low fee. And so I don't think you'd get a lot of pushback from like the homeowners association or the development community.
Any other questions? Yeah, I actually do have one. So going back to Susie's last slide, I believe. I wanted to, and again, I don't have it. So, but where it listed off the various, uses like, yeah, there you go. There you go. Thank you.
Very
And so
good.
it says,
I
like,
know.
yeah, there you go. Thank you. So like it says hotel. So if someone came in and applied for a hotel, you charge them maximum $286 for part of their impact fee. Is that what that means? I'm just trying to understand the process.
Yeah, per room. So you can see the unit you charge it by here in this third column over. So in the hotel, it would be $286 per room. Maximum, and this is just showing you the maximum. You do not have to enact them to the maximum. There are many more categories in the ITE book. I mean, it breaks it out for all kinds of any type of use, a jewelry store, a bookstore, you know, type of things. But most communities aggregate in here because you're putting in you may be putting in a retail building, and you may not know who all the tenants are when you pull the building permit. And so just using the retail overall seems to keep complaints down a bit, and it seems to be easier to do.
Thank you.
The one that's really high, really high, and I can't tell you right off, I think the highest one about Kai, isn't it drive-through, like fast food drive-through, because you have so many trips going through there, and that thing can be off the chart.
Yeah, the gas stations and the fast food restaurants tend to be the highest. They do have, you know, the pass by factor that reduces them a little bit, but even with that, they tend to be the highest.
It looks like movie theaters are quite high as well. We don't have any of those yet, but
Okay, we need to open for a public hearing.
I'll make a motion that we open for a public hearing.
We have a motion in a second.
I'll second.
And a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are in a public hearing, anyone that public would like to address this online, et cetera. Someone make a motion, to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Chad made a motion, second.
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, public hearing is closed. If there's no other discussion that we want to make, we are a recommendation on this to city council. Who do you have to go with? Let's keep this moving. All right.
can always recommend denial if you don't support. So.
I will make a motion that we recommend approval to the city council for the proposed general plan amendment, including the transportation master plan, active transportation plan, transportation master plan, impact fee facilities plan, and impact fee analysis. As we've had the presentation and with whatever staff recommendations there are.
Okay, Sean's made a recommendation, motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second, Mayas. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great, love the work, we've been appreciating all the, we've seen a lot of these maps and a lot of these discussions, I think it's been something that we needed in the city to help support some of the forward funding that's set up for us. So thank you very much for joining us.
And thanks for hanging out so long.
Thank you. It's always the ADUs.
All right, we will go ahead and keep this moving. We'll go to item 4A, proposed zoning and subdivision ordinance amendment, land use ordinance amendments to Pleasant Municipal Code tabs 18 and 71, staff presentations, and then open for a public hearing.
You're stuck with me again. Okay. Do you care if I pull out your flash drive, Brendan, or? Sorry.
No, you're good.
Junk. Okay. So before you this evening is, as indicated in the email, a very significant amount of work has gone into this, is a significant update to our subdivision ordinances. There I guess I'll just jump right into my slides. Oops. So there were changes in the last legislative session to the Utah Code. And so these updates are occurring in an effort to address those updates, make sure we're compliant, and improving our clarity and simplifying the process language so that people can more clearly follow and understand our processes, and creating some flexibility to address future adjustments that happen in the state code. And I'll kind of go through that. So some of the different things that are addressed here are concept plan form. And so the concept plan is something that is a recommendation, and I'll kind of go through who we're going to require and recommend based on the recommendation. But just so that people can come in without any cost, basically have a proposal and say, okay, this is what we're looking to accomplish, and staff can identify what the steps are in order to process an application relative to what they'd like to accomplish. And just provide a very brief summary. Typically, we talk about adherence to the general plan and some of the city codes that are quite familiar to the staff. So then also we address preliminary subdivision applications, final subdivision applications, minor subdivision application, and then noticing requirements to match state code. So with the new Utah Senate Bill 174 in the 2023 session, it ultimately, and there's various things that this does, but with regard to subdivision, it enacts a new process for subdivision review and approval, and has quite lengthy detail with regard to that and process and the number of reviews that are allowable. It applies to land use decisions that specifically for applications for single family dwellings, 2-family dwellings, or townhomes. And then we're required to gain compliance by February 1st. And it may seem like we're coming in here at the tail end, but we've actually been working on this for the last several months in order to try to get this prepared for this evening. So with regards to the review processes for our concept plans, we cannot require, based on the changes to the state code, that there is a concept plan review, but we are going to include a strong encouragement in our code for residential purposes. And the reason being is it really is helpful to the applicant to come in and have a pre-meeting with staff to understand processes, next steps. I think a lot of times that saves them more time than anything. But again, given the state code, we can't require that, but we would absolutely encourage it. But for non-residential concept plans would be a requirement, and coming in and working through those things. And commercial is typically more complex in a lot of ways. And again, that includes a staff review and comment and a recommendation of next steps and clarification of what's required to move forward. So with the review processes, it looks like I have concept plans in here twice. Here we go. For preliminary and final subdivision applications for residential single-family dwelling, 2-family dwelling, and townhomes developments not located within an identified geologic hazard area, this is the process that would occur. And so there's a DRC consideration and recommendations from our development review committee. And then the planning commission will make a consideration and determination for the preliminary approval. And there's specific language that describes our efforts and intents to meet the LUDMA, the Utah Land Use Development and Management Act, and the noticing requirements that are consisting in that. And with regard to the final subdivision application and the approval there, that would actually go to the development review committee for that final approval. With regards to other preliminary subdivision applications and final as well, it would follow the process that we generally have now. So DRC consideration, recommendation, planning commission consideration and recommendation, city council consideration and determination for that preliminary approval. And then again, the the effort and desire to meet that, LUDMA. And part of why the language and the references to the state code are to ensure that if there's changes that occur to the state code and tweaks made, we want to make sure that there's clarification that we're doing everything in our power to meet what's required of the state code. And so you'll notice some of the language and the approach has been generalized in the code and very intentionally so, because ultimately there's certain things that we anticipate will be modified or we're really not able to make full determinations on, just based on how it's outlined. So for minor subdivision application, and this is probably the most different, and there's the specific standards included that would all need to be required. The recommendation is that this just goes to the Development Review Committee for to serve as the approval authority. And the applications are required to meet all of the following standards. So they need to follow all of the standards in the zone. It can't be in a special development, a PRUD, cluster development, or other special approval development, excuse me. They have to already be compliant with the general plan. They have to be 4 or less lots located within an existing dedicated public right-of-way, so they can't be without roadway nearby, and they can't be in a geologic hazard area. And I can't remember what I'll have to look at that, the 1850 is, but they can't be subject to that. And then they have to meet all of the other requirements of the code. So that's the proposal and provision there. With regards to, and this is something we already have in our code, but something that staff felt would be really helpful to provide additional clarification and clean up on. We currently have provisions for any application at the preliminary or final subdivision level that site preparation work isn't to occur on site. And we've had some developers express some frustration with this and indicate, well, you know, we're just trying to get some things ready. The challenge that engineering has brought up is if there's work and grading and things that happen on site, it can disrupt the topography. And if there is a geotech that's completed prior to, and there's work that's done on the site, then suddenly you're dealing with a whole different site than what came forward with the application. But in vetting this further, we did see some value in looking at having some type of provision where there could be some basic clearing and grubbing on the site, as long as there's not disruption to the existing root system. And if there's no soil disturbance, then the SWIP wouldn't be required. I mean, so it's just, you know, basic work, but not anything that changes the topography of the land and would invalidate a geotech study. If there were to be work completed, and because there were questions when we had this discussion, well, can we really actually stop somebody from doing work on their site? And the answer is probably no, but we could require them to pay and do another geotech for that. And so I think having the provision in the code to restrict that is really more beneficial to them than the city, because I mean, technically we don't want to deal with something that's changed prior to an application or after an application's been submitted. And then there's also in this section, just, you know, we require a pre-construction meeting with the city staff, applicants, contractors, and any other applicable agencies that they wish to bring into those meetings, just to verify, you know, how we're moving forward with that construction. And again, limiting the improvements taking place on site until the final subdivision application is approved. And so this isn't just site work, but this is actually putting in improvements. There would have to be a final subdivision application approval, and then we would not be issuing, and this is as to current practice, but again, just additional clarification in the language, any building permits until there's recordation at the Weber County Recorder's Office, just to ensure that the plans and the lot lines and everything that's coming into place is in place prior to construction of a new structure. Any questions on that? And so with regards to noticing, we actually are taking a quite different approach to what we've done. And I think it really will simplify it substantially. We've had all kinds of noticing requirements in our code, and then every year the state code may modify theirs, and we're trying to look at our code and the state's code. Brandon can tell you how much fun this is. And trying to weigh out, okay, we're making sure we're meeting all the noticing requirements in our code, state code, everywhere. And so to simplify, instead just looking at to the state code as that place of where we meet those noticing requirements. And this is the exact language that's in the ordinance language recommendation. And really, I think this addresses and you know, perpetually addresses the need. And so that we don't have to sit and follow, because I think over time we've tried to put provisions in state code and then they've changed and modified as well. And so this just really simplifies that. And then I didn't make a slide for this, but the other provision with regard to subdivisions that we're looking to remove in the red lines is the requirement for a public hearing. And the reason being is there really isn't a lot of value in the process with the public hearing requirements. And so again, that's a deferral to state code on what their requirements are. Because with a site plan, not a site plan, excuse me, a subdivision, by the time it gets to this level and stage of the development, the public's opinions really are more valued and applicable at the general planning and zoning stages. If they're able to meet the requirements of the code, the public shouldn't be able to come in and detract from their ability to move forward with vested rights. So that's the reasoning for that. So that's the summation of that. You probably saw the terrifying, and I will pull it up, but red lines that I sent. And really, I mean, it's been a massive undertaking and effort to get this. But one of the big improvements that I feel is it breaks down the process a lot more cleanly, and not just for the developer, but for staff as well, so that we can kind of hop through, oh, we're at this stage of the process. We're here, we're doing this, we're accomplishing this. And so, and then the other thing too, that we're proposing in the code is removal of all of the checklists in the ordinance, and rather having the city council adopt those via resolution so that they're easier to modify, and having basically a minimum list, but then based on the development, having the DRC being able to expand that list based on individual projects and needs. And so I don't know, there's a lot here, if there's any questions for me, but the committee, I guess I should probably speak to who was involved with that. So we have an attorney that's been helping us update our ordinances. His name's John Geilman. He was the city attorney and has since retired in South Jordan. And then we have Brendan Bell, Tyson Jackson, our public works director, Dana Schuler, engineer, and then our mayor as well.
First of all, I'd like to thank staff for simplifying the great presentation. Having read through that, I have made some different notations and questions I had because of the help in the simplification of it. A lot of my questions have already.
I'm sorry I didn't send the presentation prior. That would have been very helpful, but I just barely finished it like tonight.
That yeah, a lot of my questions. Just for me, one more step of clarification. So if it's like a preliminary subdivision application, DRC would take the first stab at it, make recommendations, and then it would come to this group. And then we basically would send it back, and if we had any recommendations to the DRC, we would say, here's the recommendation. And that's the last time we see it, because they now are the final.
Correct. But you would actually take an action at preliminary. So you would make a determination at preliminary and set conditions.
Just the same way you do now, just goes to DRC instead of city council.
Right, we would.
The final.
We're still a recommendation
Mhm.
with any conditions that we would like to see there.
Correct.
So
It's
basically,
an approval, not a recommendation.
so we're approving it
With
with
condition.
conditions.
Mhm. And
So we're
approving
just basically
preliminary.
rearranging the approval.
Exactly, and that's the gain compliance with, state law, but that is only for those housing provisions that are listed. And the reason why we outlined the ordinance the way that we did, let me go to the clean version, the red line gives everyone a headache, I'm sure. But, the reason why we broke them out the way that we did with the two different, listings, so there's, let's see, right here. For residential, single-family dwelling, two-family dwelling, and townhome developments not located within the geologic hazard areas, here's the process. And then, for any other, here's the process. Because if the state determines that they want other, types of developments or housing developments, I mean, whatever they define that as, we can easily shift that. Or if they eliminate the ability to take these to the city council at all, then we can just eliminate the secondary section. And so we tried to simplify it in anticipation that there may be additional changes, but then also to break it out and clarify the two different processes.
Now, the one thing I know, we talked to Mayor several, couple of years ago, and was trying to get streamlined and find a way to streamline that for the developers. So we could say, here's our process, here.
Exactly.
And so we didn't have to jump through. Wait a month, wait a month, wait a month. So, you know, maybe Jeff, give us your thoughts from the developer hat on. Does this streamline it? It seems like to me that this is gonna allow staff to help us move this along. I mean, much quicker for development.
I mean, same with the developer. The developer's gonna have to do his part, because if he doesn't, then he has to do an application. And I mean, so I think it moves the process along and keeps it running, which is good.
And I think it clarifies it for everybody, and that's the hope.
And so two specific ways that we'll do that is the first is that once it goes to DRC, then you don't have to wait for a meeting as long. Number two, not necessarily related to SB 174, but the noticing. Noticing is a lot of work every time you send it out. It's something that's behind the scenes. Very few people know the details of it. But it's not just a lot of work in terms of staff time. You also have to meet a deadline, generally speaking, 10 days. And so that builds in this molasses to the program, right? To the situation, right? And so I'm in no way advocating for excluding public input, but we also don't want a mismatch between public input where it cannot have effect legally, you know, so that there are crosshairs with what can actually be done. And when you have public hearings, they require that noticing. And so it sets it up so that there's that conflict. This removal of the noticing requirements removes that, both from, you know, that mismatch of expectations of the public, but also the time delay that causes for noticing. So, I don't know if that was clear enough. I tried to make it.
Clear as molasses. No, I'm teasing. You use the word, not me.
I see where you put that. I think it's very clear.
I actually do have a recommendation. Sorry, when I reread it today.
There's no yellow lines.
Yeah, can we add some more red lines to this? No, it would be red lines to the clean copy. So one of the things that I noticed in re-reviewing it, and I think it would be helpful to just add further clarification of the approval authorities in the final section, because there's reference to the approval authorities, but actually outlining who those are, just from a clarity standpoint in the final section, so that you don't have to refer up to another section. So that was probably the only thing that I saw to recommend as a change, and I would absolutely recommend that as a change.
But I can ask a question, Myra, that it doesn't specify who the approval authority is. And who sets that?
So that it is specified up in the preliminary, but that's where I think it'd be more clear to have it in both places. So it's kind of set by state law, at least with regard to that first one with the housing. So let me find. Okay, so right here. Oh, that is tiny. I'm so sorry, everybody. Everyone read my screen. I'm so sorry. Okay, so this is in the preliminary subdivision, and so this specifies for the residential, single-family dwelling, two-family dwelling, and townhome house developments, And then again, the geological hazard areas, here's the process. And then with the other, for any other ones, it goes through the process we have now. So this eliminates the city council's role, but also gives the DRC the final approval on the subdivision for these specific uses. And then again, there's that provision, and I actually do think it's pretty clear down in the minor subdivision section of the ordinance. So yeah, the final here, and you're absolutely correct, Jeff, this is where it just references the approval authorities, and it's based on the prior section, which I just don't think is clear. And so then if we go down to the minor subdivision, this outlines the Development Review Committee as the approval authority for minor subdivisions. So what I'd like to do is add a section at the top of the final and basically outline each of the approval authorities and what they approve. Per your recommendation, this is based on your recommendation. I'm not, yeah. What was I gonna say? One thing to note, and you'll probably notice the length of what was included has gone down substantially. And again, that's where those checklists where we have listed out all of the specific things to submit, I mean, to the extent of various documents and that codified, it's just very messy. And again, I think having the city council just approve that via resolution simplifies our code so that it's not bogged down with all of that language, because I think that's part of what created some confusion as well and what the expectations were in our.
So who is, remind me who's on the DRC?
Yeah,
I know you, I think the mayor is. and
Yes.
Tyson.
and we have fire marshal. The mayor is actually, he's involved, but he's not an active decision maker on the committee. And I don't mean to
Yeah.
we absolutely listen to his opinions, but it's really more of a technical review. And so we've got the fire marshal, we have our building inspector, we have our planner, engineer, public works director. And it's a great team to kind of go through those different things. And so, and really right now, all of the things that come before you do go through the DRC, but it's less of a formalized process. I mean, this really clarifies, these are the steps. This is how, when we get an application, what we do with it, where it goes, and how we proceed.
So, but, no, I agree, I think DRC makes sense, right? But it doesn't have to necessarily be that, right?
With,
Sorry.
DRC, it doesn't have to be that.
it doesn't have to be the approval authority. Well, what we're proposing for minor subdivision is it would be the approval authority, but there is a provision in the minor that it could move to the regular process if it doesn't meet all of those criteria. And then with regard to those housing things, they do want, the state is requesting a simplified process for the final.
Yeah.
And so that's an intent to meet the final, because it's technically going to come back to the DRC to meet the conditions anyway. And so I guess it's skipping another step as to having it coming back to the planning commission or.
For SB 174 specifies for final approval that it cannot be either the planning commission or the city
What's
council.
it?
Correct, so it could, okay.
That you, I mean, it,
But our city is just deciding DRC is good.
Right,
Yeah, okay.
right. I mean, it could be an individual possible. I mean, you're absolutely right. There's different options, but we're proposing the DRC.
Okay.
Good questions. I know it's a lot. I know it's messy. I'm sorry. And I know we're on a time crunch.
So to follow procedures, we do need to open this for a public hearing. We haven't done that yet, right?
No, I think we should.
Anything? Make a motion.
I move that we open a public hearing for
Just,
legislative item 4A.
just made a motion. We have a second.
I'll second.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are open for public hearing. Do we have any comments from the public? Hearing none, do we have a motion to close?
I'll make a motion that we close.
Julie's made a motion to close. Do we have a second?
Second.
Jeff, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now that the previous administrative part of it. Are there any comments that we may be focusing on? I like the comments and clarifying in that one section, just make sure that it's step by step. Among people, I like the work, and of course, it required from our legislation that keeps changing it every year, so.
And some of it was required, but I would say like 80% of it wasn't required. It was a proactive effort because, I mean, to Commissioner Bollingberg's point, we've had a real desire to get this updated and cleaned up for, well, maybe you made the point, Chair Neff. I can't remember. Somebody made the point that we've needed to clean this up for quite some time, and it's really a great opportunity to jump in and do that.
Does anybody like to make a motion or recommendation?
I'll make a motion. A motion that we approve, recommend, or no,
Oh, this is
Recommend,
recommended.
mhm.
recommend approval of legislative item 4A. With the proposed zoning and subdivision ordinance amendment, to the Pleasant View municipal codes 18 and 17.
Want to add what she,
With the further clarification in the final section of the approval authorities. Sorry.
With that,
Chad has made a motion. Do you have a second?
second,
Sorry, Brandon.
Any discussion on it?
Just noticed a gaping hole and I'm like,
thanks for your work, appreciate it.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
thanks for reading our work on that.
Let's go ahead and jump, keep this moving along. Marcus, Commissioner of Staff, couple, do we have any staff?
Yeah, a couple of things, just, can you plug that back in?
Yes, sorry.
So there was item 3C that we passed, and then I actually did have another question on, I realized something about the
What do you want?
item 3A, so maybe I can just ask the question on 3A and then we can cover the meeting schedule in just a second. So in the motion, it was said, I clarified that the recommendation for denial would go away if the issue relating to attachment was resolved. And this might seem really detailed, but I have to put something in staff report. What does the recommendation become if that goes away? Does it become recommendation for approval if that issue is resolved? Or how do you?
No, my recommendation was we just let the city council take it from there and they make their own decision.
Okay. Yeah, that works great. And then, so Amy's got that.
It's apparently we don't have word on this, so it won't let me zoom.
Because, it's like, it's like for a break. So,
Oh, no worries. All of them are in black except for one. You'll notice is July 11th. I wanted to verify that the commission was okay with that date, or if you want to propose a different one in the end of June. The reason being that the typical date would be July 4th. I didn't think we would get very high attendance on that date, so I don't know if you want to approve it with a adjustment on that date, and then if anyone wants to verify that these are all the correct Thursdays. I tried to triple check it 3 times because
And there was another weird one. I was calendaring these last night because I'm a nerd.
You only have
And-
one, right?
Oh, go for it. There was another weird
I
one.
was just gonna say on April 4th, I think that falls on spring break.
oh, okay.
As we might, just gonna ask Sarah. We don't have to get her.
Maybe that was the other weird one that I saw because I calendared all of these last night.
There's Labor Day, but that's not Labor Day weekend. That Monday is the second September.
So it's
I think it's
3 days after Labor Day.
So the thought, we would like to move those to the 3rd Thursday, or would we like to just push it to the 2nd on those?
And you can go,
That's the third, because we just twice this each and the second Thursday, so that we don't have that planning commission conflict.
Oh, they weren't that noisy, but.
No, that's not it. Just like,
we were that
we're taking
noisy.
our room, and then just kidding.
We were that noisy.
It's originally it used to be the first and the third.
Well, let's take
Thursdays.
let's look at the April.
If that's
Does
okay.
anybody have,
But of
is there a
course,
preference to move that to
Do
the
it.
3rd instead
do
of the
what
1st?
Brandon and Amy
Thursday?
need you to do. That's just my thought.
Does that work with you guys if we move it to the 3rd Thursday of April?
18.
Yeah, that should be fine. And then the same for, you want the same for July, to the, I don't know what date that
That'd
is.
be what, the 25th?
That was the 24th.
That's gonna be a little
Oh,
harder.
so we could do the 11th, or we could go to June, the last week in June.
We could do a short meeting on the
Just so
11th.
you know, YCC doesn't meet in the summer, so. you're good.
Okay, we're good.
How was it?
I was gonna go with the short meeting.
We have the trump card.
I know you do.
So April 18th would be the fourth meeting.
So let's go to April. No. Did you say April
Yes.
18th?
And then,
July, I mean, I have no hard word in July, but what's people's thoughts on that?
I think that's probably gonna work the best.
Let's just say July 11th. And then what we'll do is before that week before, just as a reminder to everybody, we'd like to, if you're not gonna be able to attend, make sure that we let Brandon or anything know. So we can, if at the last minute that has happened, but they do this for the last several years, we have not had a rush to tell people that are coming in for the forum. So we've been, I thank you all for the great attendance.
And I want to thank everybody for the great attendance too. I feel like, and to thank Brandon as well, but I feel like we used to do the 2 meetings a month and that was a lot. I feel like this, I mean, we've really gotten on a solid schedule, but we've also had solid attendance and it's just been really nice. I'm sorry for the long nights though.
In years past, we've, on the phone,
It's all Brandon's
people
fault.
Say, please come in, even if you're here.
Me too.
What was there a third one that someone brought up that we needed to?
I couldn't find it. I think it was the 4th of July one. I'm pretty sure that's
Okay.
the one that I was thinking.
Okay, but when we finalize this with you, we'll take this with adoption, changing the April and I think it's just that.
Did anyone like calendar invites? Cause I put all of these in my calendar anyway. So if you want it like as a calendar appointment, I'm happy to.
Automatically shows us when
Yeah,
you're-
please send that, and then we also just send this in the email, so we get the.
It's just nice.
You wanna
that
send it in an
everybody
email, I'll-
accepted.
yeah, I can send an email.
If I don't put it on my calendar, I won't be here, which maybe doesn't hurt. I don't know.
But she does schedule things on. So
Oh, I do. I'm
Maybe
notorious.
this week.
That's when everybody's
That's
calendars are
how many
open.
this week.
I don't even want to know how many meetings I've been in.
Anything else from staff?
Do we have a date?
How many have you been in?
We have now declared it's always going to be the 4th Saturday. Officially, it's June 22nd.
I got that on my calendar too.
If
Yeah.
it's the 5th Saturday, it doesn't matter. It's gonna be the 4th Saturday.
Oh, next week, yeah, changes. Any-
22nd.
Commission? Any changes from the commission?
You have a preference of color for your shirt this year. I'm already getting adjustments. Tattoos.
Can I just request that it doesn't say Founder's Day on it?
Yes, well,
Because I like that Julie wears it but I haven't worn mine because it says Founder's Day. It feels funny. I would like it to
no,
say.
no, I know what you're
Founder's Day.
saying. The city council actually got a different one that didn't say that. So, yeah. I don't really see a problem with it except for it's.
well, your point is you wear.
Yeah,
Sure,
just, it feels funny to wear it outside of that.
okay,
I wear mine all the time and the other city people are like, is it your Founder's Day today? No,
say everything is Founder's Day with you,
but you should try our salmon.
All right, any other items that need to be brought up? Sarah, anything pressing for tonight?
Pressing, well, I could just keep you here all night. No, our hillside ambassador, everything, we're doing a lot. There's a lot going down.
Good.
Right, to do January 12th. Really excited about that.
Yeah, I don't know. We had like 20 meetings this week, which is impressive. We had a day off.
We worked on that, we worked on hillside development, the master plan, we worked on.
And just as a quick reminder, communication is next month, or just follow up with anything that we can pass on to the city council, maybe just a quick note and say, hey, they approved it or they denied it, here's some follow up, because we've had a few questionable ones that we've.
And we actually haven't had any council action since those, but we'll absolutely follow up.
Reminded, there's been a couple,
But I mean, on social media too, just so flexible.
some of the social. Keeps us out. It's not being yelled at on the.
Thought you were gonna say it keeps us out of trouble.
For the record, my daughter reads the posts that you put, she really appreciates your sometimes clarification to the citizens that.
I don't mind
It's
when
late
people
on.
scream at me if they're
So,
typing.
so she.
I like that.
All right, anybody else, anything else? Chad made a motion to close tonight, Julie second, we're adjourned.
Thank you all for the heavy lift after the holidays. Sorry.
Quick question, are they, the day of the legislature,